I'm Robert Hodgert. I'm a Scottish human geographer. I've interacted since the 1970s with Polish geographers. Okay, so I'm coming to this partly from a Polish direction. Now, in the major city of the western part of Ukraine, Lviv, the Ukrainians, Lviv to Poles, there is a giant statue of Stepan Bandera, who is regarded as a national hero. In World War II, Stepan Bandera was the leader of the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, UPA to the Poles. And it's complicated, but in the major province, which had been Polish in the interwar period, Volhynia, the Ukrainian Insurgent Army was responsible for one of the worst, most horrible things that happened in World War II. The massacre, it was an area of mixed Polish and Ukrainian population, and the Ukrainian Insurgent Army massacred at least 60,000 Polish women, children, non-combatants in an act of ethnic cleansing. So it would be, they were hoping this would help to restore an independent Ukraine after the war. In celebrating Stepan Bandera, who was the leader of the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, in public, in Lviv, and you can see in some of the demonstrations, you can see that in the recent crises, you can see Bandera's name mentioned as a hero. He's still a hero. They are not just denying effectively a Holocaust, they are actually celebrating it. One of the worst acts of ethnic cleansing in European history. This is unknown, largely unknown outside Poland. It's never mentioned, but I'm sure the Russian leaders know about it. I'm sure the Russians in the east of Ukraine know about it. And when they see people among the Ukrainian forces, politicians who are right sector, who have Nazi swastikas, regard Bandera as a hero, still being celebrated, that must affect their thinking. Now, as a suggestion, one thing surely, as Western countries, we can do is tell the Ukrainians, who still seem to be somewhat in denial of this history, they don't seem, historians know what happened, everybody knows what happens in that part of the world, but they're in denial. Now, we must surely tell the Ukrainians that they have to get out of denial and come to terms with that and be honest about it. And that I'm sure it's not an important, it's not a major consideration for the Russians, but they know it's there. Maybe they make more of this than because it suits them. But it is a fact. And it's time the Ukrainians dealt with it if they want to be a modern European country which is honest about its past.
So we take the question, should the West take issue with the Ukraine with regard to the history of Ukrainian nationalism?
I think that that's a good example of you might say, the complexity of these issues and the fact that they are internal Ukrainian issues. That's why I think that we must encourage the Ukrainians and the Russians, as I said, to try to find a way to put these things behind them. There are, the 20th century particularly was a particularly bloody one. Everybody has grievances. Everybody. And you either put them behind them or you don't. And I think that, yes, you've pointed out one of the problems. Certainly, one has to consider that in looking at it and not look at it simply as Russian violations of international law, which have been the case. After all, this is basically a Ukrainian internal matter. But it is an illustration of how the attitudes in one part of the country are different from those in another. And certainly we in the West should do anything we can, and this is probably better for private people rather than governments to get involved in, to try to encourage the Ukrainians to put these issues behind them. But one of the ways to do it, of course, would be to have a federal system with much more local autonomy, and something that up to now, the Ukrainians, when they're in power, whether East or West, have refused to do. And it's not just a matter right now, it's those from the West that are refusing, but when those from the East were there, they also did not put in that. So this is still a Ukrainian issue. It's one of the Russian demands, and I think it's one that the Friends of Ukraine should certainly encourage.
Thank you.